Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a very, very, very interesting episode of my podcast, Ireland Speaks. We are coming from the heart of the Burren, a place I used to live for quite a long time, and we have a very special guest, a very, very close friend of mine, whom a lot of people ask about in my life, and I think she's probably the queen of the Burren and one of Ireland's very special older people. And she is here today. We're talking by her fire here in a lovely, warm, old family cottage. Her name is Mary Doorty, and she's going to have a lot to say about life, the world, growing up in her home of Burren in Limerick, and her life in the Burren. She's very well regarded around the country and parts of the world in a way, and she's done extraordinary things in her life, and I think she's a role model for all of us, whether you be Irish, man or woman of any age. She's a lot to say about life. So, Mary, how are you doing? Welcome to the little podcast.
Oh, thank you very much, Adam. I'm having a lovely time, and I want to thank you for the introduction. You praised me beyond words. I hope I come up to it.
Yeah. I think you will. I'm good. We just went for a drive and we fed the crows and had fish fingers by the ocean and listened to John O'Donoghue. That's one of our things that we do when I'm up here visiting. And I just want to start off very simply, for those who don't know you, Mary, where were you born, in what part of the world? And tell us about you growing up and what year you were born in as well.
Yes, well, I will start with the old age. I'm 99, I will be 100 on the 29th of April, 1927 I was born. So next year, 2027, I will be 100 years. And I feel young, very happy, had a gorgeous, wonderful life, had the most wonderful friends everywhere. I'm that type of person that I love men, I love women, I love children. And I suppose that's the bottom line, that I'm just happy with my life and very grateful to God that I have good health, that I'm able to do many things just like young people. I don't feel old. In fact, I feel young.
Now, Mary, you grew up not only in a very interesting and very rich place in a way with the land, in the Golden Vale in Burren in Limerick, you can talk about that, but you also grew up and you had a very special neighbour, a very historically famous neighbour. So tell me about both of those things, about your life growing up on the farm in Burren and about the special neighbour that you had, who's a famous figure in history.
Yes, my very special neighbour, who's known all over the world, happens to be my next door neighbour, and he and I have the same address, Knockmore. President De Valera is his name, President of Ireland, and he lived in the cottage, the little labourer's cottage on my farm in Limerick. My parents were farmers, and there were 6 of us in the family, 1 boy, Jerry, and 5 girls, Helen, Mary, Nora, Breda, Joan. And we had a very, very good life in Knockmore Brewery. That is where I was born, Knockmore Brewery, County Limerick. So I'm grateful that I have wonderful memories. I knew President De Valera since I was a little child. I remember when I was about 3 years that we were, as I say, we were the farmhouse, and De Valera's was the labourer's cottage on our land. We had 200 acres of land, the Golden Vale. So that I remember when I was 3 years of age, I met President De Valera. We knew him as Dev, but of course I knew him in his older age. He would be older than myself. We used to meet at the gate going into our house, and I remember him putting his hand in his pocket and giving my neighbour, who was very, very poor, he gave him some money. That is my little memory of De Valera when I was about 3 years of age.
Wow, that's extraordinary.
Yes.
And I obviously know a lot of your story, so I'm just going to try and present some of those memories for you to talk about. One of the, besides growing up in very noble land in a way, and having a very lovely family in very, very hard times in the 20s in Ireland and the 30s. There was so much going on. I have this image that you told me, which speaks a lot of how strong people were in that era. I remember you telling me that one time your dad was away and your mother was very, very heavily pregnant, and you were staring out the window and she was milking all the cows, and there was a big storm, a lightning storm. Do you remember that?
Yes, I remember. You were stunned.
Yeah.
You see, and there was thunder and lightning, and we were very small children, and my mother out in the field milking a cow. So, as I say, it was a very, very bad evening, thunder and lightning. Yes.
And that really, to me, signifies, I mean, that was nearly 100 years ago now, different times, how people had to get out and do things in very rough weather to survive. And also how you told me how you would have servants in the house, because you had a big farmhouse, but they weren't in servitude. You're actually taking care of them because they wouldn't have hardly even anything for food. So tell me about that. How you looked after them.
That makes me laugh, because somebody said to me, "Oh, you were very posh with 3 servants," and I said, "No. They were poor people. They came from Kerry, and we were asked to. My father and mother were asked if they would take him in, and he to live with us and do the jobs with us, and we would pay him some money." That was the way. And then there were 2 girls, I remember, from Kerry as well. And just one memory is that those in Kerry, they were very poor as well. And, you know, at the fair in Newcastle West, County Limerick, they would bring the farmer, the father, he would bring his daughters to the fair, and the Limerick farmers would take the daughter, they were only teenagers, and rear them, you know, and they would help in the house. So that was done at the time, trying to help people who were very, very poor.
Now, how would you describe your parents and your relationship with them, what you thought of them?
Oh, yes. Well, I think that I was lucky to have such wonderful parents. They were very, very, very good in every sense of the word, very kind, and they were well educated. I'm amazed because, I mean, my father left school at 14, and, you know, he was so intelligent. He happened to be the chairman of the local committee. It was a committee for the milk, where they used to take the milk to the creamery in Burren. And one memory is making the butter in Burren, because when I see the Golden Veil butter, I always think, oh, that came from Burren, because we had a wonderful butter maker at the creamery. And as I say, my father was the chairman of the committee for 30 years. And he was very, very intelligent. Sometimes the teachers would ask him if they had some puzzle with doing our sums or whatever, that he would always have the answers, that he was a very wise man. And my mother then, she was very elegant and very well educated, very smart, and great parents. So like that, when lots of people came to the house, there was a great reception for them. A lot of people who immigrated, they would come back. I know the people who lived down the road in the little cottage Kents. They had 6 in family, and, you know, they were very, very poor. So that the 6 had to emigrate. 2 went to America, and 4 went to England. So that my parents then had to look after their parents, you know, Mr. and Mrs. Ned Kent, and they looked after them right up to the end when they died. So that was it about my parents.
Now, if you think of now, and think back then, because you almost touched 3 centuries in a way. You know, you can remember stories from your grandfather, and I remember you have a picture on your wall from your grandfather from 1899, and then you have the 20th century, and now we're well into the 21st century. But how would you compare living back then compared to living now? What's the biggest difference, or what are the differences, you think? Good and bad.
Yeah. Well, it was a very, very different Ireland. Completely different. You know, that nowadays people are so well off, so wealthy. That time people were poor and they just didn't have the money, but they were happy and they made their own recreation. There would be games. They were always into hurling and football. In fact, De Valera, he used to play the hurling matches with my neighbours, all my neighbours, and they were. Let's see what else.
So, obviously, you were born and bred in Limerick, but you also became a nurse. Another fascinating story. You qualified as a nurse, right? A psychiatric nurse. Is that right? And what happened when you went to London? Because that was a very interesting time in your life as well.
It was indeed. It was. Yes, I qualified as a nurse. Also, my sister Helen. We qualified as nurses in the Mater Hospital in Dublin, and general nursing. So that when I finished there, I decided that I would go to. I just wanted to travel. I really didn't want to settle down. I just wanted to travel. I found out, that I would love to go to other countries, and I often thought about going. I really, really wanted to go on a ship and be the nurse on these big steamers and travel the world. That was my idea. So I went to London and I did a lot of general nursing, and then I joined the nursing agency. And they sent me to look after very, very wealthy people, mostly from Eastern Europe. And for instance, one of the men I nursed for 2 months, it was King Saud of Arabia's son, his favourite son, the prince. And I looked after him for 2 months. And that was interesting. And I also... more from Israel. A lot of them came into the airport in London, Heathrow, and they would arrive at the psychiatric nursing home, and then they would ask me if there were specials. I would always do private special nurses, and it was a private nursing home, so that I met very, very interesting people. Some from the royal family. I won't say who they are because it's all private. And a lot of film stars suffering from depression. And they just said, "You Irish nurses, you're always laughing. What's it all about?" And I said, "Well, I'll tell you that I suppose we have no money to worry about." And there was a great laugh, because they were all very wealthy. But I remember, the parents, probably sons and daughters of these people who were in the nursing home, and they would say, "You're so happy," they just couldn't believe it. But like we Irish, we worked very, very hard. But we also laughed and had fun. And we would be having the tea in the kitchen, and everybody would be just laughing, and they were really surprised at that. And I said, "I think it's because we had no money." That was it.
And I remember you told me a story that someone would give you a great compliment. They said that they didn't need medication when you were around.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And when I left, they were crying when I left. But they did say that, that they needed, the family would come in and they'd say, "Oh, but my dad doesn't need any medication while you are around."
There's no greater compliment, is there really?
It was a great compliment, it was. It was genuine, because we Irish nurses, They were terrific nurses, worked very, very hard, but also had a great sense of humour and would be telling stories and, just made life more pleasant for them. Because I think it was very important to talk to those patients. What's wrong is that they're very lonely, and it's not altogether about medication, but definitely, if you have the good manner, that it's very, very valuable. No money could replace it.
And the thing I'm thinking about is, do you think in this era it is a more lonely time? Not for you now, just for people in the world.
Yes,
do you think?
Well, I think loneliness is the big disease in the world today. Yeah. And I'm sad to say that I see it everywhere. Well, the pandemic, I suppose, was the start of it. And people were very, very lonely. That they were frightened in the beginning. They didn't quite know about the COVID. And I suppose a lot of ignorance about it. But however, we have changed from that time. And hopefully that we will never again have the pandemic.
So what made you leave to go back to Ireland, actually?
Now, that's a good story. I'll tell you that I just felt one day, I suppose I was over 10 years or more, maybe doing the psychiatric nursing, and I just felt that I would love to go for a holiday. And I decided, well, I'll try Lisdoonvarna. So I came home and I said, I would like to go to Lisdoonvarna for a holiday. Off I went, and didn't I meet a terrific, beautiful, gorgeous farmer? And we got married, and so there I had a very wonderful 20 years with my dear husband, John Doorty.
But we pause and go back a bit, because tell me what happened when you went to the dance. Do you remember you told me the story when you seen each other across the room?
Yes.
That's a lovely story.
Yes, indeed it is, yeah. That when I arrived in Lisdoonvarna, of course, the Limerick farmers and the Cork and Tipperary farmers, they always went to Lisdoonvarna for a holiday. In fact, they never saw or met a Kerryman down here because we didn't have the ferry at the time. Now we have the ferry crossing the Shannon, and the Kerry farmers are very welcome. However, I met my gorgeous, I was looking at him across the room, and I thought, I would love to dance with him. So he did, he came over, he asked me to dance, and such a beautiful dancer, because I just love dancing. All my life long I've been dancing. I think I came into the world dancing. And also, I'm an artist, and I sold hundreds of paintings, oil colours, watercolours, and I just love painting. In fact, I got first prize for one painting that I did. It was Memories of the Burren in County Clare.
That's one of your many skills. But you remember you said you danced with him for 2 weeks, and then he turned around, and what did he ask you?
Oh, yes, okay.
Yeah, that's trying to get you back to the story.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
So that I danced with him every night because he was a beautiful dancer, and so was I. I love dancing. So we danced and danced for 2 weeks, and then he said to me, would you like to see where I live? Yes, I said, that would be wonderful. So he brought me home in his little car. We stopped outside the cottage, and he said, Mary, this is where I live. Would you like to come and live with me here? And I said, yes, I would love it. So that was it. And we got married, and we had 20 wonderful years together. Very, very happy years.
Now that leads to the big story, I think, is when you were sitting, you always had a lot of flowers in front of your house. You used to call you Mary of the Flowers. But that attracted a man on a bicycle one day. And remember he knocked at your door, and then what happened next? Because that's the start of something extraordinary.
Oh, yes, yes. Well, now, you're right there, Alan. His name was Christian. He was from Denmark. And at 11 o'clock at night, he knocked on the door. And he said, "Can I sleep here tonight?" And John asked me, "Mary, is that okay?" And I said, yes, he can have. We just had one room in our house, one bedroom, and one little small box room. And I said to Christian, is it okay if we sleep in the box room? And he said, yes, thank you. So he did. And in the morning, I gave him breakfast, which was bacon, egg, sausage, tomato, potatoes, beans, you name it, and I had it. So he enjoyed his breakfast, and then we sat down by the fire. We had a little range, the Stanley range, and the two of us sat down by the fire when the breakfast was over, and I talked to him. You see, of course, he was from Denmark, but he did have some English, and my husband, John Doorty, he went away out in the fields, or 40 acres. He went out in the farm and he was herding the cattle and looking after them. And he came back 2 hours later and he said, "Oh, you're still talking." And I said, "Yes." So he went out again and he came back in 2 hours for a cup of tea. And he said, "Mary, you're still talking." We talked, Christian and I talked all day. And it was all about, he wanted to know all about the Easter Rising, 1916, the Irish Republic. And he wanted to know all about it. So I told him the story of De Valera, President De Valera, who was my neighbour and our very dear friend. To me, he was like my uncle. We were very, very fond of President De Valera. And I told him the story. So he found that fascinating. So much so that he decided to give up his teaching job. He was a secondary school teacher back in Denmark, and he decided to go into tourism and bring tourists from his native Denmark to Dublin and to Limerick and all the other places that I had mentioned in my story. So that became a very, very big eventually. He had 4 groups of tourists coming in, all during the summer, to see the places that I mentioned, De Valera and Knockmore Brewery, and Dublin, the GPO, and all the big events about Michael Collins. He wanted to know more about Michael Collins. Yes, I said, we all loved Michael Collins as well, that he was a great, great man for Ireland, and we still talk about him and love him, and we have a picture of him on the wall, just like De Valera. So I told him all that story, and that was it.
So Mary, that was the beginning of a journey for you, and it was because, didn't he ask you how much was it to stay, and that started something for you?
Oh, yes.
This is the beginning of the big story.
Oh, yes, you're right, Adam. You're right. Now, he said, "Christian," I said, "how much?" He stayed for just the one night.
Yeah.
And he gave me £3. He asked me, "How much is it?" And I said, £3. So he gave me the 3. And we talked about my husband when he came home that night. Christian was gone away, and my husband John and I, we sat by the range and we talked about the £3. Wasn't it wonderful? And we actually said, if we had 2 people now, we'd have £6 and we could pay the bills. It sounds very funny now, but that is the truth. So that was a great story, and I decided there and then, and John thought of mercy, his next day he went off and he got blocks to build 2 bedrooms. I couldn't believe it. I saw the blocks outside the door and I said, what's all this about? Oh, he said, I'm going to build a room for the bed and breakfast business. And I said, oh, that's wonderful. So he built a very big room. And I, with my cleverness, I said to him, what about if you made 2 rooms of it? Wouldn't we make more money? So that's what happened. And then we divided the big room into 2. And I couldn't believe all the visitors that arrived. We put up a little notice outside the door, bed and breakfast. And who comes along but this lovely gentleman and his wife. And we gave them breakfast. And I was wondering in my own mind, I wonder who he is because he doesn't speak like us. He's very grand. So I asked him, I knew he was from Burren in County Offaly, B-I-R, or Burren, County Offaly. I knew just that much. And I said to him, I was bringing the breakfast in and in a big plate, and I said to him, I wonder, would you be related to the Earl of Ross? And he said to me, I am the Earl of Ross. My God, the plate nearly fell off my hands. And I couldn't believe it. Then his wife came, and they were just lovely. And they thanked me for staying the night, and they said they would come back again.
So Mary, really that story began 20, 30 years of running. At the time,
Yes.
easily one of the most successful B&Bs when tourism had nothing. There was no tourism in Clare, and you were making very, very, very good money.
Yes, that's true.
And go on, sorry.
Yeah,
Tell us.
well, Alan, that is the truth. That there was nobody doing bed and breakfast. They didn't even know what it was like. Nobody knew. I was really the very first in Kilfenora. So I decided that I would. We had the 2 rooms, and I couldn't believe it. The visitors that came when they saw the sign outside the door, because I had a very, very successful business. I like looking back. I have all my notebooks. I could show them to you. They're all full of all the money that I took in, and the expenses. Had it all well totted up, and I just couldn't believe the number. We had 600 people one year that I counted them, and they came mostly from Europe. Not very, very few Irish. But it was mostly Europeans that came for our business. Some English and some Americans, but mostly Europeans. The people in France would tell the people in Germany about this wonderful bed and breakfast in Kilfenora. So I suppose that's how we got into it, and it was a tremendous success.
And more a reflection of your character, and I think I've heard over the years from many people that people loved coming here because you are Ireland. You didn't just give them something to eat in a place. You gave them the actual experience of what Ireland is: the kindness, the generosity, the stories by the fire, driving them all over the Burren, giving them 5-course meals, which was unheard of back then.
Yes,
that was unheard of
it
back
was.
then,
Yes, it was.
And then your notebooks are filled with literally thousands of compliments from Italy to France, and a lot of these people repeated and came back over the years, and you made friends with people as well over the years, and you went to visit some of them from some invitations as well. So what started off with a man on a bicycle turned into a huge enterprise.
Huge. And everybody was talking about it. We would actually, as time went on, we built another 3 bedrooms with the money that I was getting from the business. We ended up with 6 bedrooms, and I had just one girl to help me. When I was at Mass on Sunday, I looked over and I saw this beautiful young girl. She was 16 years of age, Bernadette Kelly, and I said, Bernadette, would you ever come and help me with the bed and breakfast business? And she stayed with me for a long, long time. Eventually, she went to help with Dan McCarthy and Eileen. They had bought the big hotel in Innerstime and Lahinch, and I had trained her, and I said, yes, Bernadette will help you. So that was a wonderful story too.
Now, trying to move through your life story with all the extraordinary things you've done so far, and I know then your husband passed away, and then was there a period of time then that was sort of difficult for you?
Yes.
And how you managed your life, but there were still people who came in to help you, and you
Yes.
had miracles happen actually as well. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, now, that is true. My husband died. It would be the 29th of May, 1990.
1990, yeah.
Yeah. So that he died suddenly, got a major heart attack, and then I was on my own, and I found that hard. So that I decided one day, I just thought to myself, I was sitting by the fire here in this lovely sitting room, and this sitting room is famous, all the people that have been coming here, and, from all over the world. And that was a difficult time. So I decided, I think I'll go out and learn how to dance, set dancing, because I had never seen it in Limerick. It was a clear dance, especially the reel dance. And I decided to go and learn it. And I did. And 1 year later, I was teaching it. So I have been teaching set dancing for years.
And do you think dancing saved you in a way? It got you back into life?
Definitely.
And what was it about dancing that made you feel alive again?
Well, I would recommend set dancing to everybody. It's absolutely wonderful for brain work. You have to learn all the different sets. Every county in Ireland, 32 counties, each county has their own form of set dancing. And we have to learn a lot of it. One of my friend, Pat Murphy, he has written 4 books on the subject of set dancing. It's very ancient, and it's terrific for brain work. And being a psychiatric nurse, I would recommend set dancing, especially for mental people, mental...
People
really,
suffering
really
from
good.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Now, I know we can't cover everything, but some of the stories that struck me, you've told many times, I think would be very interested, is a story that I often think about. We were talking about it in the car today, is when you were quite ill and you were left laying there basically to pass on, or as people thought you were passing on, and you had an extraordinary experience where you seen something in the other world. Tell me that story, because that's an incredible story.
Yes.
Tell me what started and what happened.
Right. Well, now, I did have cancer twice in my life, and first time I had the operation and all that, but I was actually dying, and that was very. My family in Limerick came to say goodbye, and I know for a fact I was dying. So eventually I recovered, and then I got cancer again a few years later, and I was very, very ill. But this time was different because I was dead, and I felt that I was not of this world. I felt in the bedroom, I could see the beautiful blue butterflies, yeah. But you could see the beautiful butterflies flying over my bed. Just a few in the beginning, and then a lot of them. But it was the most beautiful shade of blue, and they were flying up and down over my bed, and I felt very, very happy. And the sound as well like the whole room was like buzzing. It was like the sound of bees.
Mm.
And then I looked to the window, and there were different people coming to the window, and they were waving to me, and I was asking them, come in, come in. And then that went on for a long time, and I was looking around at, especially at the butterflies, the blue butterflies. And that went on for a long time. But then the phone rang, and it was my sister Joan, who lived out near Adair in County Limerick. She had her own bed and breakfast business. And Joan said, Mary, how are you? And I said, Joan, I'm dying. And she said, oh, Mary, hold on, I'll get the ambulance. So she got the ambulance and got me back into the hospital. I was in a nursing home when that happened, but I got back into the St. John's Hospital and recovered. I was there for 3 weeks and made a good recovery.
So, in a sense, we talk about the huge length of time you've lived in the world, and also, you had adventures, you had a great career, then you had another career with the B&B, then you sort of started another passion, which was dancing, but yet something you haven't talked about yet was your fascination with nature and gardening and flowers. Because when I come to the house for years now, all year round there's always some colour in the garden. Tell me about your connection and your love and your interest in nature and how that affects your life.
Yes, I have a great love for gardening. I have a great love for nature, and I suppose growing up in the farm, it was natural. A great love for animals, and especially nature and flowers, and even the little daisies. I love them. So that I felt that I would do a few courses in gardening. So I went to on Green On in Dublin, outside Dublin, and went on a scholarship to learn more about gardening and flowers. In fact, I was a member of the Irish Country Women's Association when here in Kilfenora, where I just love the flowers. But
Did you tell me, for example, the history of the house here, right? You'd come out at night and you'd look up, but you'd always give thanks. You'd always look up at the stars. Remember, you said you go out at night time. You'd always look up and give thanks to God. And
yes,
but the road you live on as well, there's always flowers here that you planted. But
yes.
But the road here is very interesting because I remember you telling me the story of, I think it was your late husband's grandfather telling him as a boy, seeing the people from the famine walk by the window. Do you remember that story?
Oh yes, I do.
Yeah.
I do. I think that is special, that story.
Yeah.
Yeah. That John, my husband John Doorty, he said that Mary, he said, my grandfather would tell the stories of the famine, that it was a very, very hard time. They would actually see the poor skeletons, they called them, walking along the road, and they were hoping to get to the workhouse or the Cliffs of Moher. Unfortunately, a lot of them went to the Cliffs of Moher.
Wow.
And that was a very, very sad time. But, not very long ago, because, that they could talk about the famine in those days.
And the fact that you can look out the window here on the same road,
Yeah,
and if you think about that, you could almost sense, you could feel it, couldn't you?
Well, that is why I love this old house.
Yeah.
Because the Mrs. Doorty, one of my in-laws, she was 400 years ago. It would have been that she lived here. So that the house is very, very old. It must be about 400 or 500 years. And we just added on. So they wanted to keep the old memories alive. And then we would have a lot. It was very, very attractive for Americans who had emigrated from here. And they went to Chicago, they went to New York, and their grandchildren would come home here to, to stay in the house that the grandparents had left. The same applies to Australia. They went to Victoria in Australia, and they came back and stayed here. They would be second cousins or third cousins, and they all wanted to stay here, and I would keep them free. They never had to pay. I also, when I was doing the bed and breakfast, I would always, if there were families with young children, I'd say, all the children are free, they'll help me with the dishes. Just make it homely. And they all love sitting at the beautiful fire and, the little sitting room, so cosy and warm, because I don't like very, very large buildings with glass walls. I just don't like glass walls. They don't suit the Irish people.
Yeah. And tell them, there was a particular man who used to come to visit you here, and he was a sculptor and a pilot. And
yes.
This is another extraordinary story. The time that he ended up letting you fly the plane. Remember, he invited you over to tell that story. Great story.
Yeah, I know. I have so many wonderful, wonderful stories, He was, I didn't really know who he was, but he came one night around 9 o'clock. And my sister, Breda, she was here helping me, and the doorbell rang, and I said, Breda, would you ever answer the door? So she went out, she was peeling an apple. I think it's very funny. She was peeling an apple, and years later, he commented on, I'll never forget that woman with the knife in her hand, and she was asking me questions about, we discussing the bed and breakfast business. So that was funny. But anyway, he invited me, he and his wife. She was back in America, in Boston. But the two of them invited me over for a holiday. And I decided, yes, I'll try this. And off I went on the plane. And they said to me, that, well, where would you like to fly in the weekends? And I said, fly, what do you mean? Oh, they said, we have our own aeroplane. So we decided that we would go down to Nantucket, fly down to Nantucket, and his father and his mother would have lunch ready for us. So we did that. But when we were getting into the plane, I said to him, I'll sit in the back with your wife. And he said, oh, no, Mary, you must come and sit there. You're the pilot. You're going to fly the plane. And I said, oh, my God, can I do that? So I did. And I have all the photographs to prove it.
That's incredible, Mary. What was going to have to catch me off guard, because it is such an extraordinary story. And so, Mary, you have another chapter of romance in your life.
Yes.
And another younger man came into your life. And how did that happen? And what year? Was it in the 90s?
Yes. Well, my husband, is that okay?
Yeah.
My husband died in 1990, yes. And I was alone then for 2 or 3 years. And I just got tired of being alone. I just felt that I needed to get out and meet people. So I decided, yes, I think I'll go to the village. They're doing Cayley dancing, and I will learn how to do this set dancing, because I used to get prizes for ballroom dancing, social dancing, but I never saw set dancing, and I actually learned it, and 1 year later I was teaching it. And I've been teaching it for years and years, still teaching it, even though I am 99. But I run a Cayley and a tremendous success. Just that I want people to dance, if please, just go out dancing.
Exactly, yeah.
Because you'll meet the most wonderful people.
Yeah.
In fact, we could have 100 in the hall and nobody looking for a drink. All they drink is water. Because we're all very thirsty. We dance all night, and it's just a wonderful thing to do. You're meeting lovely people all the time.
And what happened with the man that you met? How did that happen?
So that, anyway, we went to the Cayley dancing in the village, and this man, he had brought, I said to him one night, I said, would you like to come in for a cup of tea, like I do for lots of people?
Yeah.
You're all very welcome. And come in, just for a cup of tea and a chat. So that was it. And they arranged to call the following week. And he brought his girlfriend. I didn't mind. That was okay. He and his girlfriend came and we sat down by the fire and we chatted. And then we went off dancing. So he asked the girlfriend to dance, and she said no. And I said yes. So we went off dancing, and whatever it was, I just fell in love with him. It was very quick because, I didn't know that much about him, but it was just this gorgeous young American. And he was learning to dance the Irish dances.
Mm.
So we danced all night, and from then on we were still dancing. All those years. We got married anyway years and years ago, but it's only now the people are my neighbours and the rest. They didn't know my story.
Yeah.
So I just said, well, he and I will do a Cayley, and you can all come to our Cayley. And that's what we did. We started our Cayley in the next village, and it was a tremendous success. And we have Cayleys every month, every year. So that was very good. But however, he just said to me, I would love to do a magazine on the dancing. And he said, but I need a room. And I said to him, I'm not doing any more bed and breakfast since my husband died, and those rooms are vacant. You can have one room, or if you like, you can have two rooms. And all of a sudden he said, yes, I'll do the magazine on set dancing. So he did the magazine, Set Dancing News, and I did all the proofreading for him. I suppose I was well educated, because I was already a qualified nurse and also a qualified hotel businesswoman. And he decided that he would do the magazine. And that was a tremendous success. It went out all over the world. As a matter of fact, he and I travelled all over Europe, all the big countries like France, Germany, Italy, Spain, Holland. We travelled and we stayed with our friends because they all stayed here, and we stayed with them when we went to those countries. We also toured all over England, and we went to America 6 times altogether.
It's extraordinary, all the different chapters of your life so far.
Extraordinary.
And another miracle chapter to me was one that wasn't that long ago. I think it was probably 3 years ago or 2.5 years ago, where you had an infection in your leg, and that started a whole other journey, which is quite an extraordinary story of learning to walk again. And tell me that story.
Yes. Well, that happened, my general health was good, but still, as I told you, I did have the cancer twice before and recovered. No matter what illness I had, I always recovered. Just wanted to keep going, keep living. and not make too much of being sick, because I suppose being a nurse, I was able to do the medications for myself each time. Now, let me see what's next.
So you had got an infection in your leg, and it sort of led you having to
Yes.
go into hospital, and then you went
Yes.
into a respite home, and then
Yes,
and that was when it got quite difficult. And
right. Well, now, yes, a few years ago, that I did get an infection in my knee, and my knee swelled. It was very extremely painful. In fact, it was so painful I asked God to take me.
Wow.
However, He left me here for another while. And I found that very difficult. I was very, very ill. I lost my two legs, lost the power of my two legs, so I wasn't able to walk anymore. And I was in the nursing home. And then the surgeon said to me one day, I was on a lot of antibiotics and a lot of painkillers, intravenous, because I was very, very ill. And all my family came to say goodbye. So that was it. And one day then, the surgeon came into the room, and he asked Bill, my dear husband Bill, he asked Bill and myself, he just said about that I wasn't able to walk. Then he just said, "You will never walk again." And then he said, "You will never stand again." And then he said, "And you can leave the hospital today." And I was extremely ill. I know I had bed sores, and I was extremely ill. And I had to go out and look for a nursing home, bed and breakfast, bed and accommodation, I should say. So I did. I went out and I found a nursing home, and I was spent another couple of months. So in total, I suppose,
It's 9 months.
I was away from home
Good time.
for 5 months.
And I used to go up and see you, and I found it a very difficult place to visit, because someone of your vitality and life experience and intelligence and education, to be seen there in a bed at 5 o'clock in the day, and I was starting to think, sure, she can't stay here forever. And most people would have thought at your age, that's it, you're going to stay there. And even all the residents thought that's it. I mean, you're one of the oldest residents there. But then I think we used to talk about there came a time when you made a decision to say, I'm not staying here.
Yes.
What was that moment? When did you start to go, right, I'm going to walk, I'm going to get up? And it was a very powerful moment, actually,
Yes. Well, yes, it was very, very depressing. I was in a room with another person who was not, very difficult, and Alzheimer's, and it was just all very difficult. And I just I just talked to myself, and I said, why am I here? I think I'll go home. So I informed the staff, I'm going in the morning, I'm going home. Where are you going? I'm going home in the morning. And I just kept saying, I'm going home in the morning. And they said, but you can't go on like that. You can't. This is very sudden. You just can't go on like that. Well, I can. I said, yes, I'm going home in the morning. Bill will be here for me at 11 o'clock. And he decided that he'd come, and we collected all my few bits and pieces, and we came home. And I'll never forget, coming into Lahinch, I went into Danny Mac. Danny, who's a son of my dear friend, Dan McCarthy, the Falls Hotel down in Ireland. So I went into Danny, and he gave me a lovely, lovely breakfast. And I was so happy, even though I was on the wheelchair. So that was all very difficult. I came home in the wheelchair, and then I thought about my friends at the daycare. Oh, wouldn't I love to see them? That was it. I went to visit the daycare, and looking back, I don't know how I did it. I went around in the wheelchair to each one of them, and I said, "Oh, I'm home again, home again." And from then on, I never miss a day at the daycare. Go there every Wednesday and have the most wonderful time, wonderful entertainment.
And for those who are listening, because I know a lot of Mary's story, Mary not only doesn't have a wheelchair anymore, she doesn't have a walking stick, she doesn't have glasses, she doesn't have hearing aids, and she goes walking now 2 or 3 times a week, weather permitting, in the hinge. She used a little 3-wheeler, which is handy for getting in there, but you walk upright like anybody else, and they thought you were never even going to get up ever again.
Yes.
And I remember you telling me when you were leaving the place, the home, and everyone was looking at you like, how's she getting to leave? Most people don't get to retire from a nursing home and go back home. Yeah. So that's really quite a miracle, isn't it? Like it's a miracle, really.
It is a miracle.
You have strength in you.
Yeah, because, you know, it is amazing. I just made up my mind that I must do exercises, and I would ask each and every one of you out there, please, don't ever give up. Just do the exercises. I just love walking on the prom in the hinge. And I'm like a tourist. I meet all the tourists and I have great chats with them. And I walk again, and thank God I can walk well in Lahinch or no matter where. I have a little, I call it a bicycle. There is a proper name for it, but the bike will do me. And I just have a wonderful time with the little bicycle walking around, even when I go shopping with Bill. And Bill, my husband, is my carer. And I don't need anyone else. In fact, he's my one and only carer. And he's not even paid because he's my husband. And I have the most wonderful life. And every time he's going out in the car, Mary, would you like to sit in? Yeah, of course I would. And I meet my friends in town. I sit in the car and my friends come along and chat to me. I have a great time, wonderful time.
And not only that, now you've entered another chapter, which is now you're back travelling around Ireland, and Bill is a very accomplished set dancer. He's one of the main people in Ireland, and he organises set dance, and you help him manage the set dance in different parts of Ireland now.
Yeah, well, that is a lovely story too, because Bill he teaches dance. He and I are dance teachers. We are also artists. I sold hundreds and hundreds of paintings, oil paintings, etc. And Bill does all the posters for our Cayley, because where he teaches, they were asking, we would love a Cayley. And of course, Bill being American, he said, a Cayley, what are they talking about? I don't understand. And I said, oh, I know all about Cayleys. I said, we always did Cayleys when we were children. And so we surprised everyone. We started our own Cayleys in Milltown, and a tremendous success. We have 1 or 2 Cayleys every month for the past couple of years. So that's very interesting.
And at 99 now, that would be astounding for anybody half your age. And everything you've told me up to this point is like you've lived multiple different lives, and on all successfully. You've walked through darkness, you shared joy to thousands of people all over the world. I remember the story in your B&B of a man who came to your door very depressed, and you were heading off in your Morris Minor for the weekend. And not only did you say he could stay at the B&B, he thought he couldn't, but you gave him the keys and you gave him the cake that you'd made.
I did.
And he said that changed his life.
I did. That was a lovely story. Lord to miss him, my dear husband, John. John and I were going to Limerick to visit my family. My mother wasn't well, and I made a lovely sponge cake for her. And we were just about to buzz off when John said to me, there's a car behind us. And I asked them, what is it? And they said, we were told to stay here with Mary Doorty because she would make you laugh. And I looked at her husband and I just thought, that man is depressed. So I said, we're going away to Limerick to see my family in Limerick. So you can have, there's the key, you can have the house free for the weekend, Friday, Saturday and Sunday. We will be back on Monday. And you can, I made a sponge cake for my mother, but I said, you can have the sponge cake. I just looked at him and I thought to myself, that man is depressed. So came back to find that they enjoyed the weekend and they were in great health and form going back home to their own.
And you've done that, I think. Your generosity and kindness is well known in this community, in the Burren. And the other stories we were just talking earlier about John O'Donoghue and the Burren and your history and your relationship with the Burren, which you've been here for 50 odd years now, and how you're one of the people that helped save the Burren when you went marching. Remember, they were going to turn it into an interpretive centre, and
yes,
you and
I did.
Patrick
yes,
McCormick and your like battled for a long time to keep the integrity and the history of the Burren intact. So tell me a little bit about that. That was, I think, during the early 90s. I'm not sure which year.
Well, I did a lot of community work in the village. I did all the flowers every summer. I did all the flowers for them and picking up bits of rubbish and the usual. But I did. I bought a little car after my husband died, and I used to drive into the village and do. I always did lots of community work. When the president came down to open for the hall, they asked me to do the catering. So I was in charge of that. And then another time, the President of Ireland came again for another event, the opening of the Burren Centre. And they asked me also to do the catering and take charge. And I did that as well. Like, I was very happy to help out. I always helped out in the village. And community work is terribly, terribly important. You feel better if you're helping other people,
Absolutely, yeah.
So that is my motto. Try and help everyone if you can.
So you're heading for 99 in April and 100 next year. It's an extraordinary milestone, and also vigorous health of mind and body. And you read and you have a lot of different hobbies. What would you tell to the men and particularly the women of Ireland who are listening here, or anybody, about why you've reached such a grand age and you're in such vital spirits? What is the thing that you think has made you come to this point and be who you are today?
Yeah, well, I suppose I'm very lucky. I have, I was always happy helping everyone, not so much thinking about myself, but always helping people. And I loved the children, as I say, and the men, the women, and nature, loved the animals, loved the outdoor. I just love the outdoor. I like Morgan. He was a great friend. He died recently, but I would always listen to his programs, and I bought his books about the trees and about growing trees, and I just love nature, being out there and about. But I think I suppose I had a very happy disposition. I would no matter what ups and downs, and everybody has ups and downs. We all have them. We can't deny that, No. I mean, it's terribly important to say that, yes, I suffered too, and I will occasionally be up and down. That's the usual, that's life. But just try to help other people is terribly important. My parents did it when there was a lot of poverty in the village. And I would see them, big boiler of eggs, we had a lot of hens at home, and sending them to the village. Or when they had the pigs have the pigs for the whole winter, for the dinners, they would always send meat to the village. That was terrible. I suppose looking at them and how they coped was very important. I was just lucky that I had good parents, But still, I would say that you have to work at it, that it's important to keep fit. I am a wonderful person for walking and for keeping fit. And I also have a great love altogether for books. And, no matter if I watch good programs, I only watch good programs on television. I would never watch rubbish. But I always watch good programs, and I read a lot. I would read about each woman in the 1916 rising, that the women were so wonderful that we have neglected that side of our business. People don't know how wonderful they were. And then you see, there was, unfortunately, we had the Civil War, and the women were written out of it. But I read all those books, and I'm simply amazed at what I've read. I find it very, very interesting.
I have a little story about, De Valera's life very well, but also just the fact that I forgot to mention that you knew, obviously, that your mother's first cousin was Michael Collins's priest.
Yes.
And your mother's other first cousin did the autopsy on him.
Yes.
So you have a Collins connection as well.
Yes,
but you also have a story about De Valera, about nearly being brought to Cuba. Remember, you tell us that story,
yes,
which could have changed the fate of Ireland, really. Tell us that story.
Yes, I must start with the bit about Michael Collins, it's in my memory. That Michael Collins, there is a book actually written about Michael Collins by by a soldier, writer, and he made out that anything could have. We don't know exactly what happened to Michael Collins. In fact, he said he was very depressed on the day. He was an army man now who wrote that book, and it's interesting his idea, his knowledge of what happened that day. So I read that book, and that I got another side to all that happened with Michael Collins. I got another side of the story. However, now,
your mother's first cousin.
My mother's first cousin then, he was a Redemptorist priest, Father Cagney. And it was he who, when Michael Collins was brought to the hospital, it was my mother's first cousin, Father Cagney, who looked after Michael Collins. That, when they brought the body in, it was he who looked after him. Yeah.
So, just to wrap things up now, it's been extraordinary. We could talk for days about your extraordinary life. Your connection with the Burren and coming here, and your connection with nature and your love for nature. Do you think that has sustained you in your appreciation of what it means to be alive here, and what it means to be Irish actually as well?
Yes, yeah. I find County Clare is there's something very special about County Clare, that I just love living here, and the people, they're different, they're wonderful, and a lot of things happen in County Clare. I think it's because I look on it like as if it was an island, because we have the Atlantic on every side of it, up by Ballyvaughan and up Loophead on the other side, and the Cliffs of Moher, of course. And I must say, when I came here, there was a lot of poverty. I saw an awful lot of poverty when I came here, and helped out. I helped out all the time, but I could see the poverty. Whereas now, at my age now, I can see how well off the people are. It's the number one tourist attraction in Ireland, which is amazing. Over those years that I could see such a transformation, that it is the number one tourist attraction. Like, we have the Cliffs of Moher, we have Lahinch, we have Doolin, we have Listowel, we have Innistyme, Kilfenora, Ballyvaughan, and it's people are coming here from all over the world. And when I go to Lahinch, if it's a fine Sunday, I see thousands of people, and they're coming from all these places, and in a huge car park and not a space lift. The people might have to travel way out the roads. That it is amazing how they're all coming here to Clare. Clare has something special about it. I could see how De Valera found it very special. I could see his predecessor, Daniel O'Connell, found it very special. You know, whatever it is.
It's you, Mary. That's why they come here.
I wonder
It's
is it?
because
I
you're
wonder.
here, yeah. Listen, we'll finish off. Would you like to do a poem or a song?
Oh, yes.
I think we'll end with something poetic or a song. Whatever you think. What would you be in for?
Yeah, but I see now. What could
You know the one about the home, the poem, the little house,
Oh, yes, on that one.
or a song. If you want to do a song,
no,
as
I
well.
think that is the one that you're talking about.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah.
One. Go ahead.
That yes, I would often entertain the visitors with singing, and I remember a family came from America one time. They were looking for their ancestors up the country. I won't say which county because it's not so nice. Family went there, you know, and they weren't very well received. I suppose it's hard to blame because, like, you know, it's a stranger might marry into the farmer, where the house they left many years. The grandparents had left, so they didn't get much of a welcome. And they came back here again, and they said, "Oh, Mary, can we stay here because it's like home?" They let on to the Americans that this was their ancestors. I often laughed at that, you know, because I just obliged. However, I'll give you this little poem, if I can remember it.
Nice.
I have a good memory.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm very, very lucky that I can read a book
Yeah.
without any glasses.
Amazing.
And I can, very good at the hearing.
Yeah.
And what else? See. Oh, yes, and thank God I'm good at the walking.
Oh, my God, you're amazing
Very
at the
good. I
walking.
can walk now without any assistance.
Incredible.
So that, let me see, is there something else?
Do you remember that poem? I don't know if you remember the poem.
Now, the poem is An Old Woman of the Roads. Now, here goes. Oh, to have a little house, to own the heart, the stool and all, the heaped up sods upon the fire, the pile of turf against the wall. I could be busy all the day, cleaning and sweeping the house and the floor. And tired I am of bog of road, and crying wind and the lonesome hush. And I'm praying to God, and I'm praying Him night and day for a little house, a house of my own, out of the wind and the rain's way.
So, Mary, I'd love to thank you for having an extraordinary conversation here on our episode of Ireland Speaks. And we hope to see you and talk to you when you reach the triple digits of the 100. And now you said something extraordinary to me last year when you turned a very youthful 98. I said to you, Mary, how does it feel to be 98? And you said, it's getting really exciting now. It's getting really, and that's a good way to end, isn't it?
It is, yes, it is. Well, you know, it makes me laugh, you know, because I often say people are stunned and surprised at the smart way that I walk and talk and all the rest. And they're very, very surprised because of my age. And I say to them, well, there is no one more surprised than I am, because I really don't believe it.
I think you're only... There's a picture on Mary's wall that I've seen many times, and it's a picture of her in her Holy Communion. Or no, it's a picture just as a child. She's 7 years old, and her face looks exactly the same. You can almost cut your face out and put it onto the photograph, and it'd be the same face. In other words, your spirit has always been young. That's what I think. Your spirit's always been... Your spirit's still young.
Yeah. I feel young. I feel young.
Yeah.
You know, and I would advise people, like, you know, try to just keep young, because we have an awful lot to be thankful for.
Yeah.
We live in a most beautiful country, Ireland. There is no place in the world like Ireland. I'm certain of that.
And I've one question to ask you. As the Queen of Ireland, which you are, and say you were the Queen of the world, what's the one thing you would do to fix the world today?
I would try to ask people to be positive. that I don't listen. I just turn, if it's negative, I turn it off, turn off television. If it's negative, I don't listen to rubbish. And people are definitely kind and loving, but just try to be positive. There is no point in being depressed. It's not good. And try to be positive, because, as I say, thank the good God. In fact, every morning when I look out the window, I say, oh, thank God for the sun.
And I'd end up with one little story here. I was reading poetry with a harpist up in Listonbarna, and you came along. You were only a young 90 at the time, and you had a cloak on, your green cloak that you wear. And you got up and you start dancing around the whole room, swinging the cloak around the place. Do you remember that story? And everyone was going, what in God's name is this one? But it was an incredible moment, because that's when I knew I was doing a poem about Ireland, and you start swinging around the room. That's when I knew you are Ireland. You were the spirit of Ireland in that room at that moment. And you took the feeling of that and you flew around the room, dancing in front of everybody.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know anybody who's ever done that.
Yes, I remember that, Alan.
Yeah.
That I still think, why did I make such an impression, Because it's natural for me to be happy, be smiling, be pleasant, because I thank the good God and Our Blessed Lady, St. Joseph and all the holy angels and saints of heaven. It's important too to keep the faith and, be positive, because we have such a lot to be thankful for.
Well, Mary, you're an extraordinary role model. I'm sure many people would say that after hearing you. And I think what I can say is you have conquered life. Everything that life can have has thrown at you, and you just swept it away and kept on dancing.
Yes.
So Mary Doorty of County Clare, Queen of the Burren, thank you very much for giving us so much of your soul and heart and words today. And long may you keep living into a wonderful future to come of all the different days of dancing and singing. So God bless you, and thank you again. This is Alan from Ireland Speaks. I hope you got a lot from that. I did, talking to Mary, Queen of the Flowers and Queen of the Burren. So take care and see you soon.